Good evening, Wednesday night. It is our 5th week in our Fruit of the Spirit, Revamp, Relearn, Rooted in the Spirit series. And this week we are talking about, and it should appear right there, strawberries. Right there. Should be a strawberry floating right there. Give it a little time. Patience. This week we're talking about patience. There's something about strawberries. I don't particularly care for them. But the general gist that I get from the people who do like them is that they're small, they're sweet, and they're so worth the wait. But the thing is you really cannot rush a strawberry patch. If you pick them too early, they're very, 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 very sour, and they haven't had time to ripen. And nobody enjoys a bitter strawberry. You really have to wait for that perfect prime opportune time, the right season, the right ripeness. That is how patience works in our life as well. You can't microwave it. You can't rush it. Patience has to ripen us through the Spirit. And let's be honest, most of us not great at waiting. We live in a world of instant downloads, drive-thrus, and Amazon Prime. Waiting feels like we're wasting time. But James says waiting is actually one of God's greatest classrooms. I want to confess something to you. Though I do give the air of being a patient man, and if you ask the people around me, I probably am, there are times where I am not the most patient. One night, when living in Lubbock, I went to go pick up a pizza. There's an awesome pizza joint there called One Guy from Italy. Great pizza. Reminded me of this place in Pittsburgh that I grew up eating at called AJ's. And I was excited. It had been a long week of testing, and it was going into sort of a break week where we didn't have to do anything. And I grabbed 2 large pizzas, and I walked in and I saw this huge line, and immediately I thought, here we go. This is going to take forever. And I stood there, checking my phone, sighing, rolling my eyes, wondering what's taking so long. Finally, I kind of marched up to the counter, ready to demand my pizza, because I had already paid online. It was da-da-da-da. And I was kind of getting a little mad, probably more so than I normally would with somebody who works in the food industry, because I'm generally pretty nice. And the girl looked at me, pointed at the pickup shelf that was right behind me, a heated shelf, and said, "Sir, it's sitting over there. Your name's on it in big letters." I had been impatient for something that I already had. My impatience blinded me to what was right in front of me. Isn't that how life works sometimes? We often think God is late, that he's forgotten us, that in reality, he's already provided not just in the way or the timing that we expected. That's kind of how God works. And the pizza story makes us laugh, but patience isn't always funny. Sometimes it's the difference between giving up and holding on. Klein Payton, who later started the Latin School of Preaching and then the Sunset School of Preaching, that is now the Sunset International Biblical Institute, began his mission work in Italy in 1949 with his wife. They sold what they had and crossed the ocean, landed in a place where the gospel itself had very little foothold. They were constantly harassed by the police. They would put up their sign that said Church of Christ there in Italian, and then the police would come and pull it down. They had charges brought against them. I couldn't find whatever happened, if anything ever did happen. And they struggled. They struggled because the culture was different. The soil was very hard. People were suspicious. And the fruit of their work was slow. I read that there were weeks, months where no one seemed to respond. Can you imagine that discouragement? You've left home, you've left your family, you left security to share Christ, and the response feels like silence. But they stayed, they prayed, and they waited, and they sowed seed. And in time, churches were planted, leaders raised up. And they would then moved to Denmark before coming back to Lubbock and starting the Sunset International Church, or what will be the International Institution. Looking back, we celebrate the fruits, but in the moment, the patience that carried them through, that patience of faith, the patience of trusting in God's timing, it's astonishing to me. It's amazing to me. It's a testimony to me to see that. In James chapter 5, it says, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its crop, patiently waiting for autumn and spring rains." Farmers tend to understand stuff that we often forget. There are limits to what you control. You can plant, you can water, you can tend, but you cannot hurry the harvest. Farmers know that they live on God's timetable, not their own. Patience, James says, is learning to live that way, trusting the process and trusting God. And then there's Abraham. God promised him a son while he was already old. And then the waiting lasted 25 years. 25 years of wondering, did God forget? And yet, in God's perfect timing, Isaac was born. Abraham's story reminds us that God is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. He may not work on a schedule, but his promises ripen right on time today. So what does patience look like for us today? Maybe we need patience with people. Family members, co-workers, neighbors. We're called to see them through God's eyes, not our frustration. Maybe it's patience with our children. They move slow, they stumble, they repeat the same thing over and over again. But patience says God's still working with them, just like he's working on me. Maybe we need patience with God. When the door hasn't opened and the silence feels unheavy, patience is trusting that God is not absent. He's working unseen behind the curtain. So here's a challenge with this, to cultivate the strawberries that we need, the patience that we need. Next time you're stuck in traffic, standing in a long line, waiting on hold, don't sigh, don't honk, don't grumble, pray. Try turning waiting into worship. It doesn't have to be wasted. It can be in a place where God ripens something in you, just like strawberries, sweet and worth the wait. Patience is the sweet strawberry that the Spirit grows when we stop rushing and we start trusting. This week, when you find yourself waiting, whether in line or in life, pause and pray, Lord, grow some patience in me. Help me trust in your timing. And remember, sometimes that pizza's already ready, sitting on the counter with your name on it. And sometimes, like the Paydens in Italy, God is doing something far bigger than you can see in that moment. If there's anything that we can do for you here at the Lily's Chapel Church of Christ, feel free to reach out. You can message us and just ask. God bless.